What I always start with in Foley is I always start with some kind of room tone, some kind of ambience, something that just helps me feel like we're somewhere. It can also help set the loudness of the Foley that we're putting in there and can almost help me feel out the reverb a little bit. And then I just started using the glass smash. So glass smash helped me figure out the hit points. So if I come through and we start the scene off. So I'm just starting to build up these moments, and all of that is just me clicking around and finding your sort of, I think it was mainly these shards and the shatter because I wanted that bass to it. I wanted that heaviness to that glass happening because there was lots of it happening at once. And that sort of just helped me figure out the impact of it. And then from there it's about sort of almost like the movement of the glass coming out of that window as they move through that window. We sort of start to then use the glass breaking preset. So we can move on to this one. So it's slightly different. So we've got these sort of impacts that we can do. I then also started to bring down the impact and start to move around, increase the debris, and start just to create that rumble of that movement of that object. And then also started to add in different pitch layers as well to create a depth and a density to the glass quite quickly as well. Because if you obviously add on even just 3 layers of different pitches of the same kind of movement, you'll end up getting a depth to it pretty much immediately. So you can sort of have that. I can move it all the way down. Maybe that's a bit extreme that I did, but you can start to have that idea that there's lots of different action happening at different moments quite quickly, and then you can sort of drag that out quite quickly. So the next element of it is that movement of them walking over the top of the stone and moving over the top of the pews as well. Kind of need that cobbled up rock. We need the wood as well. And a lot of that was done, as you can see, was not only done with weirdly, the rocks and pebbles preset. So it kind of adds in like a little crispiness to it.
Make everything feel a bit realer, even if they're
Yeah.
quite quiet in the mix and you don't really notice them. Like I think that's again.
Without it, you don't get that frequency and that crispiness or that bass to it. That can be sort of done. I just thought rocks and pebbles, we just needed some kind of like rolling sound that I wasn't quite getting from the shatter. And then I basically just spammed the shoe category or the footstep category pretty much. So I've got some urban stuff, I've got some indoor things, all of just wood, stone. And you can kind of hear it's pretty much me stepping around on the pad if I open up all of these. So it's quite a small movement.
Really nice thing about like that particular thing is like you're not really trying to synchronize those steps, but you just need
Nah.
like the scramble. Where I can imagine this being quite useful because you can quickly get lots of movements quickly by clicking and then just dragging it out.
Yeah, none of these had any specific footsteps you're capturing. It's sort of just it's trying to just get that clamour, that movement of somebody moving over. So I sort of use Boots Urban obviously because you sort of had this gritty, clean sound, which I quite liked. You literally even just sort of going was enough, or maybe adding some scuffs on. And then all I've got to do is sort of drag that out. You're just adding in these different layers and being able to then reset and do another interaction and drag that out. I can change to the boots and door. I wanted some woods. They were going over the top of pews. We'll start to build up quite quickly this movement of just people without much synchronization to anything because you don't need it in this. We're not following one specific character in this at all. That would probably be the first thing I do if there's some sort of clamor, some kind of movement to it. If we then had a individual one character at the front who was then taking these big steps that you could see, that would be the last thing. That's almost your spot effects where I would then go, cool, well, those are the steps I now need to actually make sure they're interacting with. And that would require then making sure that I'm interacting a little bit more to the video to get that interaction correct. But then again, being able to then just drag it into the project, I can then sync it up within my project if I need to, because you can just quickly slide it over or set it up wherever that first step is. The last aspect to this specific movement that I quite like, I've used it in quite a few of our redesigns, is actually using our windows and our doors, specifically windows here and stuff, to create the movement of wood. So even with this, if I solo these four, so I've got sort of like 3 wooden windows and a rustic door. It creates a nice sort of little rumble, again, just to add a little bit more texture to the movement they've got. We've got some pews falling over in this scene. It sort of all makes sense to add that in. And that's simply just using, if I could just, I'm just going to use our search, is just simply using some of these. I think some of them were more of the sort of gentle side, just to create that rattle. And again, playing around the pitch just to create that texture. I think I used some of the knocks just to sort of create that rattle as well.
The shots of the island, I think, are really. It's a very short section, but it's very evocative.
So you can kind of see I've split this up into quite a few little subsections. For the shot where you're seeing the beach, you're going to hear the beach. On top of that, we're just going to start building some gentle winds. So I just needed some movement to the atmosphere that is happening around these shots.
So that's the Wind Gentle preset because it's named in the file.
It's called Wind Gentle. It makes it so much easier when we go down to weather. So it's the AI one. So I wanted to make sure that what I could do was add in my own little gusts of movement. So you'll kind of notice that it sort of helps you move in. It's almost like it's like a cinematic, it's like a Foley version of a cinematic transition. You just want that surge to help you like set yourself in. If you've moved from maybe the previous scene is from here, it's just sort of a title cards moment. You've got absolute silence. You're then moving into a moment where you're going to have all of the beach happening. Rather than it suddenly feeling like you're in a new ambience, if you add in something that happens at the beginning, it makes people go, oh, cool, we're in a new moment. We're in this new scene. And a lot of the time, weather or wind can actually do a really good job of that. You can even set it ever so slightly before the cut happens or the edit happens, just to help people settle into that moment. So when you're sort of interacting with this AI, it was little tiny movements around the purple pins at the bottom. I didn't need anything major, but you sort of had So it's really, really subtle, really small movements. It sort of creates a bit more of a rhythmic weather that you've got that fits your scene, and it can be done just really easily with the AI because you can just do a quick movement and then you're done and you can move it in. So once I sort of had that setting, obviously the main key moment is the movement of those people that come onto the scene. So this is actually using a couple of files that we've got in our library of a rolling chair. So I've sort of slowed down a rolling chair sound and added it on to some reindeer hooves, some sort of gravel movements, sort of those rocks and pebble sounds, to sort of start building a little bit of just some movement, some clunking. So if I sort of just solo some of that movement, you can sort of hear. To be fair, the shoes in the forest were the last thing that I did. Just adding in, it's just feeling out what those layers are doing. But even with those shoes in the forest, I think I managed to keep them generally paced with the horse, sort of just keep them generally paced with those reindeer hooves, just to keep everything feeling like it's pacing together. Otherwise, sometimes it can feel a bit like for a few seconds, and that can feel really unnatural. Just go a little bit more in and just spam them a little bit, and you might actually find it just creates a little bit more of just that noise that you need.
We go on to some of the more dramatic cinematic stuff later on.
Of course we can.
I'm really interested to hear about this really fantastic big impacts that you've made here.
My approach is exactly the same as Foley. You're just not doing Foley. I know that sounds really strange to say, but when I was talking about doing Foley, you're layering things until it feels right. That's really what you're doing within this. And again, with the drag and drop within Krotos, like that, Krotos Studio, that really helps because you can just basically go, cool, that wasn't enough. All right, redo it, drag it in. When you think it's too much, dial it back a little bit and you've got it. So if we go towards the end here, these are probably our biggest hit points with the big title cards. I'll just solo the cinematic layers that I put in. But what I started with, and I always really like starting with this preset because it does have some really great elements in it, is dark entry. Dark entry is probably, it's got a really nice hit to it. It's got a really nice impact to it. If you just click on it, sounds like that. But the idea with that is that it's got a really nice bram. It's got a really good hit. It's got a bit of something element to it, some sort of scream to it, and it's got a bit of a rise to it as well that we can use. Being able to drag those stems out and then rearrange them was really, really cool to be able to get my hit points in the right moment. But if I drag this out here, with this, I've sort of been able to get each of those elements separately. I can drag those into the moments that I need to, but then I've also got the riser here that you can see separately. So I can, even though that's technically afterwards, we can use that as a riser. If I just want to hit that down slightly, let's see what that sounds like just on its own. So we've gone from technically a sound that was this way around, and I've gone to it where I've just quickly dragged it in, and because I was able just to quickly see that there was a rise, I can quickly switch them around, and I've got that bass note, I've got that rise, I've got that hit. I can actually start using those layers in lots of different other areas. A convenient way of creating hit points very quickly.
You want to take us through some of these other layers? Go ahead.
Metal hit was something when I heard I wanted to add in more of an impact to one of those sounds. So being able to then add in a more abrupt hit, metal hit is kind of perfect for that. And you've got this sort of wobble, this sort of bassy hit to it, but with a little bit of texture rather than it just being like a sub bass. The aggressive drop was quite a fun one to add in. That started the bram to it. So this is what the preset sounds like if I just hit it. You have your low. And so what I did with that was I created 4 different hits of different pitches. So I sort of just pitched it down ever so slightly. I let that fade, I dragged it in, I pitched it up slightly. I let that fade, I dragged it in. Same process. It sort of creates that movement.
Definitely those 3 presets, like the atomic barrel, the metal hit, and the aggressive drop. Looks like you've got loads of different layers out of those at different times to sort of gel things together, but it wasn't getting the same sound all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got, because of that variation, even just within you clicking in the Krotos Studio preset, you get a different hit each time. Within a few seconds of me interacting with that preset, I've got sort of 5 or 6 variations that I can now work with, can start sort of creating those variations really quickly for those moments.
It's pretty amazing that you managed to use Krotos Studio for about, seems like 90% of the stuff here, which is...
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, I'd say out of about 250 tracks worth of sound, I would say about 4 of them are dragging in from our library. All the rest of them are Krotos Studio.
There were a couple of little things that I added in that were really easy, that I found quite straightforward to do. So one of them was a little bit of fire here.
Nice.
Because I think what was there before was almost a little too subtle. And even though you don't actually see the fire, it's quite a nice thing to get in there. And that was really easy to do by, using the actual fire preset. Whereas if I had to go into a library and find fire, I probably would have spent ages listening to lots of different bits of fire rather than kind of extensively. So even that was just too big. I think I did something more like this. And then you can always just edit it really fast. And then once it's audio, this is one of the things I really like. It's much faster to edit with. And it's so quickly to just get it in. There was a moment where he shuts a door here, where we didn't have a door. So I just needed to find a door really fast. And I used the door category really quickly. playing around really quickly, be like, okay, what do I think is going to work better? So just that first bit. In fact, yeah, it's really easy to drag it, pick it up, and layer it on top of something else. Oops, like enormous reverb on it.
Sorry, adds drama.
So things like that were really easy. I mentioned the weapons. So initially on our first draft, we didn't have any weapons on the actual gunshot.
Yeah.
So I used a combination of Weaponiser and Krotos Studios. So that's the first one. So we did actually need the reverb on that. I did process it quite a lot afterwards, just to give it a little bit of meat. But I went for the AK-47 indoors. That's just firing that preset. That worked pretty well. But again, because the trailer was already sounding pretty big, I did post-process it a fair amount.
When you added in those gunshots, it's almost quite like on beat as well.
I think you did that here. So this are really nice for that, because these sound like gunshots, but we're not using those gunshots. So that's almost a rise into that cut, and then it emphasizes each cut. And then the last one was just as this guy is like, we just needed the single. That was the single AK-47. Again, I drove it pretty hard to just gel it with the rest of the mix, which was pretty meaty by that point. So I just trying a few things. I mean, so that default sound was nowhere near as strong as I needed it to be, so I just whacking the strength of the mechanism right up.
Yeah.
That's way more like what I want. And then even then, taking it in and then post-processing it, being able to just drag it immediately and then just try it. So I think my other main contribution to this was kind of vaguely musical section towards the end. So I think I just got the stems. That was essentially just mainly one preset from the music category. It obviously sounds very different.
Yeah.
There was something, again, I went through the music presets trying to find something that worked, and I kind of like there was something about like sort of tension in this one, although there are other elements that obviously don't work and are not appropriate at all. But yeah, being able to just pick and turn them down, you can kind of on something that you think might work. So this is basically the bit that did work. You just needed something really minimal and pulsy. You don't really need all that harmonic content, and then just pitching it right down. Obviously it slows it to a more appropriate tempo, and that's pretty much what we had. I then used the stem drag and drop. I think was really useful here, because you can obviously just pick that up, get each of those stems out for that. So there's the kick and the click, and then that was quite a different section in the whole trailer. Yeah. And I think it was quite nice because we could duck out one of those brams, give it a bit of space, just push the brams constantly for 30 seconds.
Yeah, being able to have that almost like in the music preset, like you said, even though the tone of the music preset as a whole was not right for this trailer, being able to have that sort of like pulse really help track that moment, then helped us build when the Brahms came in.
I remembered one that Molly had just made of our vehicle Foley pack, which was the car signal. And this is a pulse, but very different type of pulse. But kind of quality of something rhythmic. And I used the quick effects, turn that into something else. So again, I experimented with a couple of these. I think I started with maybe this one. I mean, it's also very atmospheric, but not really what we wanted. I think it was resonant repeats. That was it. There we go.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did that, I was like, yeah, that's good. And then I could just jump to a different corner, to get a different tone for the click. If I was watching a trailer and I heard that sound, I don't think I'd ever think, oh, that's a car indicator. Oh, so yeah, the last thing I thought I'd go through was a very recent addition. So we added in some zombies. Because you always need zombies.
Yeah.
And that was remarkably easy because we have a preset called Zombie.
We do.
The Dystopia, I think it's called. This is a really awesome addition. Out, and I was like, okay, which part of this is going to work? And then every now and then you might find, okay, the little initial kind of works well. It's like the first cut, or but it's so easy, just try it. stumble around the library, process a bunch of stuff, get it in, just trying something quickly, get it in. And then the monster. And that's from the Krotos Studio Max library, so that's the fleshy beast. So that was made by me with the very early version of Dehumanizer, and then a pig squeal, and then I think I repurposed some of it later for the invisible monster at the end. Something else that I noticed in your section as well was the use of the flashback riser.
Yes, yeah.
I found these really, really handy, just because you get something just for a right to then cut really fast, and each of these have a slightly different vibe. This one's great as well. So again, maybe I can even try that right now with, I don't know, the end. I mean, we really don't need it at the end, but.